Hi everyone and welcome back and welcome to the today's stream, and in this we are going to build a simple authentication service. And we are going to use all these tools and technologies. So first of all, I will talk about what all we are going to use. So I'm doing a daily stream on some of the unique aspects, and I'm covering the end-to-end example to the implementation. It's not like, okay, I'm just talking theoretically. It's we are covering end-to-end from scratch to we are developing whatever we are choosing the topic. Like today's topic is building the authentication service, where we are having simple authentication routes and the user APIs. First, user will authenticate, will receive cookies, and then with the help of those cookies, user should be able to access the platform. So we are going to use Express. Obviously this is a Node.js framework. So we are going to build a REST APIs. And what we are doing is we can use the REST client to test our APIs. Okay, and we are using simple Express, and we are using crypto, some of the library like crypto, body parser, cookie parser. And what all concepts we are going to learn? We are going to learn the MVC pattern, MVC architecture pattern using Express. We will talk about all these different building blocks, all the different building blocks of building a simple Express app. So here we are going to create routes, controller, services, all sort of things we are going to cover in this section. So services and model, which is the database layer, and for that we are using Mongoose, right? These are the libraries we are using. And dev dependencies, we are using TypeScript. And TS node that is being used by NodeMon. Okay, these are some of the dependencies we are using that I will be talking about in this example, right? So this is like a baseline. What all we are building? We are building a simple API platform. So we are going to store the user data in our table, MongoDB table, and then we are going to generate a session by returning the cookies. That is the main agenda, and then we will understand how we are doing a cookie based authentication, right? So what we are doing is these are some of the modules which are like, okay, NodeMon to keep our server running when we are changing the code. TS node is used by NodeMon. TypeScript is a compiler, we are using tsconfig for it, right? In tsconfig, whatever the TypeScript project we are writing, we need a tsconfig.json that contains the compiler configuration. Like it contains the instructions how to compile the TypeScript code, and it is used, and Mongoose is an ODM library that we can use to read and write to the database. So here we are using read and write to the MongoDB, and MongoDB we already have in the Docker container. Okay, and cookie parser to extract the cookies. From request. Body parser is also same thing. It is also used to extract extract the body from request object. So we need to register the body parser and cookie parser as a middleware. Crypto is just a library to generate a hash value. And REST client, Insomnia you can use, or Postman, whatever is you are comfortable with. Express it is a web framework. You can say it is a web framework until unless you only use it to build the REST APIs, which is returning only JSON. But you can use it with the handlebars, like you can also do the server-side rendering by using handlebars like pug templates, handlebar templates. Then it like you can build end-to-end server-side app also using Express, because you can render the templates, you can render the whole layouts, index.html from the server side. Whatever we are doing currently with the Next.js, all those things can be done by Express.js, right? Because you can do a response.json, if you remember. You can also do response.render to render the server side template, and you can do response.json. So from the server, you can return a JSON object, you can return a template, you can return a text content, text HTML content. So this is like a web framework, can do anything. REST APIs, you can, we are building HTTP REST APIs. You can test it using Insomnia or Postman. Crypto is actually a library, a simple library to generate a hash value, because when we are doing a login, we need to create the password. Hash value of the password you can use. Most of the people use bcrypt, but bcrypt is actually a library which is natively designed in C and C++ on some operating system. That creates a problem. And crypto is just like a simple native JavaScript module. You can use it to create a simple hash value with the help of salt. Salt is just like another parameter you are passing. Body parser to extract the body from the request object. Without this, you cannot pass anything in the HTTP post request. You will not get anything inside HTTP post. Cookie parser, when you want to send cookies in the HTTP request, because what we are going to build a cookie based authentication system. So cookie parser is needed for that. Mongoose is ODM to deal with the MongoDB table collections. You can do Mongoose model.find, find by ID, find many, find by ID and update, find by ID and delete. All these operations are there in the ODM. You just connect to the Mongoose and do it. TypeScript, because we are writing all the code in TypeScript.ts files, and we need a compiler, TypeScript compiler using tsconfig. So tsconfig will handle compiling this code and converting into JavaScript, and that you can run using simple node, because tsconfig will use compiler that will generate your output inside some build. And then finally you can do something like this, because here you don't need TypeScript. This is your final output. So you are fine with just running this in your Lambda, in your EC2 instance on your local system, because what we need is final index.js, and Node.js is happy to run that. But on the local development, you can use TS Node. So these all will be dev dependencies. Okay, nodemon is actually, we create a nodemon.json that will use TS Node to watch and run. So nodemon is actually a watcher, and it will use TS Node src index.ts file. So it will keep running your code when you are changing it. And we are using, because we are using TypeScript, so we need all the types dependencies. So you can see, so there is also Node also provides the typing module. Similarly, there is Express, because we are writing TypeScript, so we need the types. We cannot just use simple everything would need a types. Even I think body parser also has its own type. So whatever you are adding with the help of types, what these modules are exposing just a types .d.ts file, .d.ts file, which our package, whenever we are importing anything, we should be able to read them, and we should be able to get the type. Because let's say if I'm writing a simple middleware, request response or next function, they have their type. Request is coming from express.request. So these are the types which are already defined. We will have to use them: request, response, next function. I hope you have already built something in the Express TypeScript and how it is done. Now these are the concepts we are going to work on. We are going to create a simple router, controller, services, and model database. Here we are using Mongoose, right? So we are going to define the model like user model. How you can define the schema? So we are going to define a Mongoose schema. For it, Mongoose schema, we are just going to create a model with the help of Mongoose schema, and then once you have a model, you can do all these operations. Model.find, okay, give me all the records. Okay, similarly we have model.find by ID. Here you need to pass the underscore ID, like whatever the ID you have. Similarly, find by ID and update, find by ID and delete. All these methods are provided by this Mongoose. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we will just get started with this, and we will see how we can just build the simple APIs. I'm already covering this in the full stack mastery course. This is a part of that video only. I also thought of covering this as a stream that contains lots of aspects, lots of concept. I mean, building Express TypeScript app is simple. Now the next video which I will be publishing is building a production ready a microservice using Express TypeScript that contains all the concepts of 12 factor principles, how to populate the environment, how to have a segregated different environment, how to use a ODM layer, create a separate DAO layer, create exceptions, create a logger, all the components which you see in any production ready Express microservices. I have a huge content on the Nest.js, but I'm covering this in the Express, so people who are not into Nest.js can be familiar with Express also. Okay, so let's get started on that. Doing any mistake, okay, a dot b, where b doesn't even exist on a, so you will be creating a interface enums, so we will always know that b is the property which exists on type a. Okay, so we will open this in the terminal. This is the monorepo setup which we have already done in the first video. You can check in the playlist link, and here we are going to just do a pnpm init to just initialize our project with simple package JSON, and then we will install all the dependencies which we need. So here is our package JSON, right? And here I will just say we'll add some scope to it. Let's say tk sharma express auth have. Similarly, I can just do Express TypeScript APIs. So what is the advantage of this? In the NX console, the first video we talked about select workspace, I'm talking about this monorepo, and here we should be able to, okay, it will take some time. NX console, when I open it again, the NX console should be able to show me all the projects we have. So this is the pnpm workspace, this is the pnpm workspace YAML, all the applications and all the packages. Currently we don't have anything in the packages, we are just adding things inside our applications. So let's add all the dependencies which we need for our TypeScript app. We are going to use Mongoose, and we are going to write a simple APIs, authentication APIs, where we have a database, some helpers, some middlewares and all. Because we are writing Express, so what all we need controllers, we need server.ts, the handler, the routes and middleware if you are using something, services and model layer. This is pretty much the folder structure of any of your Express MVC app looks like, where you have middlewares, you have controller, services, models and router, and then your root package JSON and all. So let's start with adding the dependencies. Okay, I will do pnpm add. So we are inside the correct folder, pnpm add. So what all things we need? We need Express first of all, and then we will add the typings for them. Express body parser, Express body parser, cookies parser. To extract the cookies, to extract the body, there is a body parser, and then cross origin resource sharing, Ladesh, we might use it, LODSH, there is a typo, and then Mongoose. These are actually core main dependencies we need to add in our project, and then there will be a dev dependencies which we can add. I think that these should be inside dev dependencies, and then there will be a dev dependencies. So what all we need to add inside dev dependencies, that also we will do. So to add the dev dependencies, we can use this command pnpm add -d. Okay, let's go there, and this is something done. Now we are going to add pnpm add -d, and here we have some dev dependencies to be added. Right now it's all about typings, so we need a node mon, we need ts node, we need TypeScript, because TypeScript is a dev dependency, we don't need it in production. Okay, then important is types node, right? So all the types for Mongoose, because for the typings, TypeScript needs typings for each and every package. Even for Express, Mongoose, they have their own types defined inside these. So we have types Express, types node, and then let's say types Mongoose we already have. Lodash, let's add them, then we will add the remaining dependencies. So it is adding all the dev dependencies which is getting added. Now let's add the remaining. So we need the types body parser, cookie parser, and okay, let's add that. So here we need to add types body parser. Okay, that is correct. And then types cookies or cookie parser, and that's it. I think these are all the packages we are using. So we got all the types for each and every package, so that's good. Now we can start writing our code. We got all the required dependencies in our application. Okay, this package.json. Now inside package.json we are also going to have the scripts which we need to execute. So what the scripts will execute? Scripts, we can just have a start only. We can also write tests and all, and it is going to use node mon. What is a node mon? You might have heard about it. So when you change the JavaScript TypeScript code, you also want to restart the server. So we can create a node mon. We can use the node mon and create a node mon.json in our project. So node mon.json, and this will contain only the basic configuration. Okay, which particular folder to watch? I'm going to watch src folder. Here is my src folder, and inside that you are creating JavaScript TypeScript, and I'm going to execute that using ts node src index.ts. I will keep restarting the server. So we are going to have index.ts in the root. That will have our server configuration, like how we want to start our server, like what all packages we need. So let's say if I just do console.log hello, and this is the TypeScript code. So remember, you always need tsconfig. Tsconfig is a TypeScript compiler configuration that you need to compile the TypeScript into JavaScript. So what you will be doing, you will be creating a dist folder, because TypeScript, whenever the TypeScript compiles, either you talk about Angular, React, or Next.js, when you do the build, it creates a dist folder or the build folder. Same thing we are going to do here. So we are going to create tsconfig, because this tsc command or ts node needs tsconfig file. tsconfig.json. And here what it contains is, it contains compiler configuration, compiler options you can say, and inside compiler options you will have a module and all the configuration. There is a standard definition of the tsconfig if you look into the TypeScript project. So I'm just saying node next. It will cover all the node and module resolution, which I'm setting module resolution equal to node. It can be node 16, node next. Okay, and then base URL. Okay, what is your base URL for which I will start looking for the files? Base URL is source. Okay, and when it comes to out directory, I mean where you want to put the, once you do the build, what should be the output folder in which I'm going to put the content? Dist and source map. Do you want to generate a source map when you are doing a build? You can set true. Okay, why it is complaining? There is a comma missing. And then any, no implicit any. So there are many no implicit any. It's true or false. That means that you cannot differ the types to no implicit any. Like sometimes what we do is we don't have any types, so we just override that and just set any. Include what all you wanted to include. I want to include everything which is inside source folder. So you can put something like this. Okay, sorry. So inside source, I can have asterisk. That means anything which is inside source. And you can also exclude. I think there is exclude, so you can exclude dist folder. You can exclude node modules. And if you don't want to build the tests, you can exclude that. Okay, these are like a basic tsconfig file. And if you want interested in looking for these, you can just go here and check out the global tsconfig for files, what all is the compiler configuration we have. So you can see, okay, let me just go to tsconfig compiler options, right? These are compiler option, allow unreachable code. So if you are allowing unreachable code, it will not throw any error at the time of build. Allow unused labels, exact option property types, no fail through cases in switch. So if you are just making any cases which are not reachable, no implicit any. So in some cases where no types annotations are present, TypeScript will fall back that type to any. So what it is saying is, okay, you are not specifying that I will not be putting unknown. I will be saying, okay, this is of type any. Okay, no implicit override. So all these tsconfig, these are the TypeScript compiler options. And based on your comfort, if you don't want a strict TypeScript checking, you can actually override these options. Allow JS, check JS. The important part is, so like these are the compiler options. Extends, you can also extend the existing other base tsconfig file if you already have a base tsconfig file. And yes, and this is how you are including, and this is how you can exclude, let's say, the node modules and all. And this is how you can do the type checking and all. So these are all available in the TypeScript compiler configuration. Okay, and this is all about, okay, playground, how you can play with the TypeScript. I think 5.x is now available. That will give us, and these are the TypeScript concepts. If you want to learn about TypeScript, then this is the best place to come and learn. Don't look for any other source, because they really have the best documentation on the planet about TypeScript. There may be 1,000 tutorials. Okay, don't look at them. These are the real, you can say everything inside about this, about the TypeScript, like generics, static members, how to define public, private, member visibility, how you can extend the classes, interface, enums, the types, tuples, creating the different custom types, parameter properties, class expressions. Everything is here because they are the master. And then you are using those TypeScript concept in the React, Node.js, Ember, Backbone, any other framework which exists on the planet, because this is the TypeScript and Microsoft has it. So that is the biggest advantage they have. Okay, and now this is the tsconfig. So if I do try to run the build npm run start, so I will go to this project first, cd, I think we are already there in that, npm run start. Currently it is not starting anything, there is only node-moon command, so it will start looking for these files. And if I try to change this, right, it will keep starting. This is how it is happening, right? This is what I want. When I change the code, it keeps reloading and it keeps restarting my application. Now I will go to my index.ts and let's start our Express app. So it's bare bone, it's not a production ready and each and every feature rich project, baseline project. We are going to create whatever we need. We just need to create a simple authentication application, and this is how I am getting Express instance. And then I can import HTTP from HTTP. This is the core library, and then I can just have import body parser from body parser. It's autocomplete, so import cookie parser from cookie parser, and import from, it's not there, that's fine, we will write it. And then we are going to create a router because we are writing Express app. So what happened with this? Okay, there is no types added for this. It's strange. Let's add the type for it. pnpm add -d types. So you will see from the error that what is the problem here. No types added, and now it has gone, right? Because now the compiler got the everything what it needs. So now we will just create app instance, const app equal to express, and we created the express instance, and then app.use. I will also start doing the registering the middleware and all. I will just do this later, but this is how you will register a middleware. Like if you already have some request response next. Now what TypeScript needs, you cannot just write something like this. Okay, it always expect that, okay, you need to specify the types for the request response and the next function, because TypeScript doesn't like it. So what we will do is we'll get the request from Express. Is it coming? We will add it, request response, and then there is another type we have is next function. Express next function. I think I should get request and response from there. Right, so this is about adding the types. Now if you try to access something on the request object, that is available only whatever is Express is providing, right? This is the all options: accepted, app, base URL, body, all the properties which are available on the request object. And here I will just do next, not doing anything here. This is like a simple middleware I have created. Okay, now I will just focus on creating a HTTP server. So there are two ways you can simply do is app.listen. Right, this is how we create. This is a callback function, and once the server is started, console.log, and here you can specify the port. I think that is a second argument, process.env.port. If you look into this, it takes path, okay, and then there is a callback function, app.listen port, and this is the callback function, and here we can say server is running on this particular port. We are good. Server is running on which port? Do we know it? If we don't know it, then we'll just fall back that to 3000, let's say 2, and here also we can put it process.env.port. 3002. Okay, happy. And now what we need to do is, before even everything is good, we will also import the Mongoose, which is not there. We need to import from the top, import Mongoose, because we need a database connection. So we don't need a server running without connecting to the database. Here I will add a Mongoose, and then there is a method, there is a mechanism to convert a Mongoose. So how can I do this? Mongoose.connect, and I think this is the callback based. So here you need to pass the argument. Okay, what is the URL? Mongo process.env.mongo URL. Right, so what it returns? It returns the promise, right? So you can just do a dot then and try to handle this promise, or we will do it in different way. So if this is a connected, here we can do a dot then. There are many ways of doing it. Either what you can do is you can wait for the MongoDB to be connected and then start the server. Okay, if there is a connection error, then what you can do is you can just do catch, and you can just do process.exit. We can just terminate this process because MongoDB is not connected. Or there is a handler mongodb.connection.error. So if you are not writing, if you are converting this into the, this is also fine, or you can write it in the little bit different way. You can convert you can promisify this Mongoose library, and you can just handle it something like this. You can just log this instead of terminating the process, and then once everything is running, I will just put this at the last, app.use, because we need to register the router, right? We have to create a router for our application. where we are going to define all the routes. It's not like a single, in the single file we are going to add everything. Const router equal to const router. Let's import this first. At the top we are going to create a router file. Import router from, we'll create a router folder. There we are going to define all the router, and here I can just do is app.use for the forward slash. This is my base path. Either I can put API. This is be a prefix for all the API routers, and I can pass router. App.use app.listen. That's it. So this is a simple configuration we have. Now I will add I will initiate a Docker Compose up to have my MongoDB container up and running. We will connect to the MongoDB and we should be able to start something. And in the router we will just put a simple route. Let's say hello world. Okay, so here what we did is I created a simple router, index.ts. This is a simple router to check my configuration is working as expected. Express router can be created from Express router, and I just created hello world. And I'm returning an export default router. I mean, I'm just returning the router instance, so we can add it here, router. And then I also need a .env, because this is where I can just specify my port 3002, let's say, and MongoDB URL. I already have a Docker Compose up running somewhere that we created in the last video. Docker Compose up. This is my Docker Compose YAML. You do Docker Compose up, MongoDB container is running on 27017. So I can specify Mongo URL, MongoDB localhost 27017 database name. And this Mongo URL you can use in your index.ts file simply by specifying here in the Mongo URL. Okay. And I can start, I can see if it is running or not. npm run start. It is using node mode. And I'm just printing, okay, what is the MongoDB URL from the .env. So .env is a module which helps you to populate the env variables into process.env. If you are looking into this for the first time, this is what it does. You specify env in the root of the project, put the variables and do the .env config in your root index.ts file. It will load all these variables in the process.env so that you can use that in your project. Process.env.port, process.env.mongoURL, process.env.secret, anything. This is how you can get the variables. And my server is running on 3002. And here I can say /API, and I got the hello world. So what it says, my APIs are running, right? I'm hitting this because here is my router. In the router there is a /. Now if you want to say API hello, what happens? I don't need to restart the server. It is already happening. API hello is a GET request. It is not found now. If I do API hello, it will give me hello world, right? This is how we define the API router path. And instead of doing it like this, you will create a separate files for the user authentication, whatever the entities you are using. And we will also bootstrap our models, MongoDB models. So now what we are going to do, we are going to create two different APIs. One is a simple authentication and the user API. Okay. So, I mean, we can use a bcrypt and just generate a JSON web token. We can use a simple hash value and can return the cookies. And then we can write a middleware to validate the cookies and then can allow user to access. So there is a middleware part. There is some utility part to decrypt, to create the hash of the password, middleware to validate the cookies, JSON web token and all. So all those concepts we are going to put on, right? So here inside router, we can create some folders. One is a DB. DB will contain some model. So here we are going to create a users.ts. This is the model. And we are going to create some helpers that will help us to decode the password, because either we can use a bcrypt or we can use a crypto library to create a hash version of the password. And then we also need a middleware. So here we are not using bcrypt. We'll just use a simple crypto, create the hash value and store that hash value in the password. And once user will log in, we will compare that hash value with the actual text password. If that is correct, then we will just return the cookies, and then that cookies user needs to come back with to access the APIs. Okay, so in the middleware, we are going to add some stuff, index.ts. There is a router middleware, and inside router, we have authentication and the users router. So users.ts and let's say auth.ts. So index.ts. So here we have two different routers. Okay. And inside index.ts, instead of doing this, we will not be doing this. So all these routers we will be putting in the respective folders. And here we can just do export default. I mean, we can just create a simple function which is returning express.router. Okay, this is how we will be adding the flavor of the TypeScript. And here we are going to define use the router. So let's import something. Import auth from. So there we are going to create two different routers. Import users and then we can just simply say is users and we'll pass the router object. And here we have auth and pass the router. And we just need to return this router because this router is now rich with all these API routes. We don't need to export default. Okay, and then we need to create auth and the users. So this auth will take care of the authentication. So here again we just need to use import express from express. And here I can simply say is export default simple function, which is taking router object because router we are passing, and this is express dot router we are getting. And what it is returning, it is returning two different routes. Router dot post, we are using the same router object, that is important. So here I'm going to write API auth register. This will be handled by register function, which we will be adding that in the handler in the controller. And then there is a auth login and there will be a login function. And then we can import all these things. Import login register from. So we need to go out from here because we will be creating another folder. So there is a controller we can create inside src. And inside controller, we are going to talk about, okay, this is related to auth. And here we can import login, comma, register. So at least these errors will be gone from here. This is our auth. Similarly, there is a user route. So in the user, we will be doing the same thing. Here instead of this, there will be a users. And I will be fetching get all users. These are the different methods. Get all user, delete user. If you are allowed, update user. And then similarly we can just do here, the path will be different because now user is logged in and trying to access his own resources. User.get, give me all the users. That is simple. I think everybody can do that very quickly and very easily. And here instead of this, now the resource path will be give me this particular user. Now we need to just add some middlewares here. Okay, that I will add in the last. Or now I will just doing is, okay, this is get. So we can also do a delete because you can write a simple APIs delete. And here I will be calling delete user. This is to update a user. And I will be calling update user. That's it. Controller users. And then we will be adding some middlewares here because this function takes your path, and then the second argument is all your handlers, all the middlewares you wanted to add, and then your actual handler where the request will be forwarded. So when the request comes, it will come to the middlewares and then it will goes to the actual handlers, right? And middlewares can be many, not only single one, right? These are the, now we will be creating controllers. So what the controller contains, the user.ts and auth.ts. Inside controllers, I will create two files, users.ts, auth.ts. Currently our server is not running because we are doing lots of changes and there are some errors. Inside a users, first we will focus on the auth because there we are doing lots of things. Export const because we need to do a named export here, login. This is the function, and this is the sync function. This is the controller where we are doing most of the things. And this is the model. Model we haven't discussed. This is the MongoDB model, which specifies, okay, this is how you are going to store the data. Mongoose from Mongoose, and here we are going to define the schema, because let's say if we talk about the SQL database, there we define the table structure. Similarly, let me just hide it, it's very disturbing. Const user schema, and here we will define, okay, what the user contains, what the user collection is going to contain. Mongoose.schema. And the important part is these basic things I don't cover much. Here I'm covering because I wanted to create some advanced series, so I just wanted to cover some basics so that we would be on the same page. Whatever I was talking is advanced, that is understandable for each and everyone. So the type is string, that is uppercase string, and then the required is true. So this is how you can do the validations. Required true. Okay, so all the columns you can add here. I'll be putting some of the things. Name, so name, instead of this there can be email, and then there is a username, and then there is another attribute we have is authentication. Inside authentication I'm going to have a password, so this is of type object. Okay, inside the object, what I'm going to have multiple properties. Let's say password. The password is of type string, required true. And do we need to select it? We don't need to select it in the queries, right? So select false. By default, when you do the find operations, the password won't be there in the response. So when you do the fetch all the users, you won't be fetching the password. Salt value, we also need to store the salt value, using which we will get the password comparison. So type is string and select is false. We don't need to select it. And then there is a session token, which we will fetch, which we will store whenever you do the login, and we will return it in the cookies. Select is false. So that's it. This is our authentication table. Now how you are going to query to the MongoDB, all those methods we can define here. Export, const, user model. First of all, we'll create a user model, which is mongoose.model, and you specify your model name. Okay, my model name is user, and schema, user schema. Okay, this is your model. Now you can define some helper methods. Export const, so you don't need to write that in the controllers. Get users. How I can do it? This is a function that is going to return user model dot find. So it will give me all the users with the columns which I'm selecting. Export const get user. What is the problem here? Const is allowed as a variable declaration name. Okay, oh sorry, what I'm doing. And we can export it. Get user, similarly get user by email. All these methods which I wanted to add as a helper methods. So const get user by email. So what I'm doing is user dot find. Here I will be taking email as an input. Email is of type string, right? And then we just need to pass user dot find. Inside this we just need to pass this where close, and that is easy with the MongoDB. We just pass the email property. Okay, then another method is get user by session token. So similarly I have a couple of methods. I will talk about them. I can quickly write them and then I will explain them. It's already there in some helper projects. Get user by session token. So you can do the nested property find also. Authentication dot session token. Give me the user which belongs to this session token. User model dot find one. Get user by ID. Create user. So I already have the values. I can just pass them. New user model dot save dot then user dot to object. Or you can make it async await also. Delete user by ID. Find one and delete. Find one and update. Simple, right? These are some of the methods which we already have. We just need to do await now, because all of these methods, if you see, these all are methods should be returning promise. Here I can see this is mongoose.promise. Okay. Dot find what it is returning. It is returning, I mean, it should be returning a promise. So you should be attaching await on top of that. So this is our MongoDB model. And now we will write our controller. So inside controller, we have a user controller or the auth controller. So we are doing a login, and then similarly, there is a register function. And we are going to use some helpers. So first of all, import Express from Express library, and here we already are using this database model, right? And we are going to use some helper methods, which I will be writing the first. So we have helpers, and then inside helpers we have index.ts. So what helpers you need in this whole project? So first of all, I need to create the hash value for the password. So we will be passing the salt value and the password, and it will give me the hex value. So I need the crypto module for that. npm add crypto. So I will import that. Import crypto from, and then we can have some kind of a secret that we can get from the env, right? I can have a password secret, and that is equal to secret. Okay, so this is the password secret we are going to use in our helper. Where is our helper? Yes, index. It should be ts file. Why I'm putting js? Sorry for the typo. Okay, and here I will be just const secret equal to process.env password secret. Otherwise, just keep it empty. And then here I can just define method export const authentication. And what the authentication does is it contains two arguments, salt, which is of type string, and the password, which is of type string. It will take two arguments, and it is going to return the string. So this is what we are writing TypeScript, and what it is doing is return crypto dot create. There is a function, I forgot that, create hash, create h. Yes, this function which takes what is the algorithm SHA-256. This is the enum, I guess. This will allow me, and then here you can pass salt, I mean whatever the argument you are passing, salt and password I'm passing, dot join, and then this is we are creating what is that here, type string. So here salt dot join, and then we can do the dot update. Okay, this is the update method is there, and that is using secret. This secret variable dot is the digest. You need to create digest of hex digest. That's it. So this is giving us simple authentication, and export const random. I need to just generate some random session ID also, that I can use just a simple crypto module, crypto.random bytes of 128 characters dot to string, and just convert it into base 64. That's it. These are the two methods which I'm going to use in the auth controller. So I will just use that what is that method, random, and another method is authentication. Happens we don't need to specify ts. Okay, the login part. Now inside authentication, what we are going to do, we are going to get the email and the password. So we are going to put a try catch boundary, because we are going to do lots of stuff inside this, so we should know where it is breaking. And for now, let's say throw error, and we will define what all the possible errors we can get. And here we are going to get things from the body, right? So we also need to register the body parser middleware. So email and the password we are getting from request.body. So most of the projects I write using Nest.js. There the process is little different. Here we'll be using express.request, and we have a response which is express.response. This is how we are adding the types for each and every parameter we are passing in the function. And here we can use joy validator. This is just a simple project, so I'm just checking, okay, email is not there or the password is not there. In that case, you can just return response dot status code, send status, response dot send status 400. That's a bad request, right? Because I'm expecting email and the password which you are not passing. Otherwise, await. So here we can use get user by email, which we already have defined in the model, and we will be passing the email. And from that, we can also do the select operation on that. What I'm just selecting is, I'm selecting only two attributes. So here, this is the syntax. Authentication.salt and authentication.password. These are the two values I am getting. I'm going to fetch. Because by default that is not allowed, right? Because select is false. If user is not there, then what we can do is simply return response.send status. You can also send a message with that 400 bad request or invalid credential or whatever with the message. If user is not there, otherwise you will get the expected hash. Okay, this should be the hash value because we are going to use expected hash. We are going to use authentication method here, and we already know the user.authentication.salt. This is the user object which contains authentication.salt. Why the type is not coming? Okay, authentication is there. It takes two argument. User.authentication, because I want to access salt value, and then the password which user is passing to create. So this is my expected hash. That is what I should get. Okay, let me check what is the problem with the typings. So let me check with the typing issue. I just mark this as any for now. So I'm passing the salt value on the password. So this is my expected hash which I should receive, because I already have the salt value in the database and my password. Because what we are doing, so I will tell you what we are doing. So there is a register method. So when you do the registration, what we are going to do is we are going to create. So there is a simple register method which will create two things for me, some salt value, and it is going to create a password, and it is going to store both the values. So salt value we can create using random function that we will store in the database, and then the hash value, bcrypt hash value, use the password. Now what we will do is we will, when we are doing login, we will get the salt value from the password and the password value which we are getting from the body. This is the text password. We will use these and we will create the expected hash value which is already there in the database. If both are equals, that means your password is correct, right? So this is the simple comparison we are doing with our so here we already have a user password, user dot authentication dot password. If this is not equal to, if this is not equal to the password expected hash, that means return response dot send status. You can send 403 or bad request, anything is fine. Otherwise, if everything is good, we can just generate the salt value which is random, and we can also put the session token, because session token we need to generate, which we are going to send to the client. So here session token equal to authentication salt dot user dot underscore id dot to string, because it's an object, and then simply await user dot save. So we just did the user dot find, and we also added a session token in the database. So why we are doing it? Because once user do the login, we also want to store the session token in the database, and so on the same object we put the session token, and then here response dot set cookies. This method we can use response dot cookies, because now we are sending the response back to the user. So it's like auth cookie simply, and here user dot authentication dot session token. This is what we are going to send, and these are the cookies properties. Okay, what should be the domain? Domain is localhost, path is /, or you can also set these cookies HTTP only, so client won't be able to access them. And once this is done, you can just return response dot status 200, everything was good, and then dot json, this is the user object if you want, dot and dot send, whatever you want to do. So it will give me the status code, and it is also sending me the auth cookies with this session token. So we'll try to do the register and try to do the login system first. Here, okay, we'll copy some of the part. I catch. So we are doing register now. Async request response, and this is our try catch. Okay, inside this, what we do have is we are getting the stuff from the request body, because now we are doing registration, right? So here in the body we are getting email, password, and the username. And how the registration looks like, if everything is being passed, then we will allow user to create it. So if email, password, and username all are being passed, we are good. Email, password, and username, if all are these being passed, so we will just check if user exists or not. If there is existing user, we won't allow user to create, so we will just do get user by email, and we'll pass the email, and we will check is this user exist. If this user exists, we won't allow you to create. If I'm just adding some just simple code here, response dot status and status, for me it is a 409 because it's a conflict. You want to create something which already exists in the database, and here we'll create a salt with a random, and then const user equal to await create user. This method we already have, create user, and you are passing an object. So here we have email, username, and authentication. Authentication is an object which contains lots of properties. So in the property we are passing salt, which we already have, and the password is the authentic. We will call the authentication function. We will pass the salt value and the text password which you are sending. So I can just create a hash value for it, and then if it is everything is good, return response dot status. Response dot status, status will be 201 created dot json user dot end if you want, and this is it. So let's test it. If anything goes wrong, we'll just throw the error. So same exceptions will be thrown back. So it will be handled by 500. These are the specific status code we are returning. Return status code and all. Okay, so we can test this thing at least, because these are the controllers. We are using the models, helpers, everything is connected here. get all users. Okay, we don't have all these functions, so let's comment these out for now. Okay, auth, we have everything for this. npm run start. Okay, something is not right. Can't find module db users. Source index.ts that we are importing in this db users. Okay, so we need to do something like this. Inside users, we don't have anything, so I will just put the console.log. I think this is restarted. Now let's test it. Okay, so we have written the code. Now let's check this. Okay, if it is working, and then if it is not working, we will do the troubleshooting, and we will try to explore how to troubleshoot, because I will be doing some mistake by myself and we will be fixing them. Okay, so this is auth register. Okay, running, nothing, right? So let's see API auth register. So here I'm calling router. Okay, let's talk about only auth. Inside that we have auth register. Everything is good. Register method, we can just do a console.log if it is coming here. Okay, now I will do this again and we'll check in the terminal if anything is coming up. Okay, man, nothing is coming up. So that's the problem, right? Are we passing the handlers correctly? That is the first thing. Are these routers and handlers are connected properly? If not, so here this is the router, and what you see, it is returning the router object. So we need to call this function, right? Then only we'll be getting it. So I call this function. Now if I try to do this, at least it is returning 500, right? So I can see unable to read property undefined. That means whatever we are passing in the body, it's not being forwarded to the controllers. That is because we are not using these middlewares. We need to use them. app.use body parser.json, and then app.use also cookie parser we are going to use for the middleware. So we will register the cookie parser, and cross origin for now we can just leave it. Body parser and cookie parser. Let's restart the function now. Body parser, why it is terminating? Can't find module cookie parser. Okay, cookie parser, we are already adding it. Is it not there in the package JSON? Cookies parser, and we are using cookie parser. Are these different? That may be the mysterious thing. Cookies parser. Okay, there are two modules. That's really strange. So let me see the documentation, which one is which. So we'll go to npm. For now I will just do cookie parser. So cookie parser, and in the package JSON it should be cookie parser. I will just do npm install. So I will get the right module. Sometimes these mistakes can also happen, right? Cookie parser, and I will just do npm run start again, and I will send the request. At least I'm getting hello. That's a good thing. 409 conflict. Okay, that should not be possible because I haven't created this user yet. But let me change this email. Everything is a conflict. Again, another issue we need to fix. Router, auth, and we are doing register, and conflict I'm sending. Okay, that is wrong, right? If existing user is there, then we are sending conflict. So let's see what we are getting inside this console.log. Maybe it is coming undefined or empty object. That's why it is coming every time. I will hit this. So it is coming as an empty array. Obviously, get user by email, right? So we need to check if existing user is there, and existing user dot length should be greater than 0 for that. Okay, we fixed it. Now I will create this user, and user is created. That's what I want. but we are giving everything. That is wrong, right? We are returning the whole authentication object. So we need to delete the authentication object before returning the user. So while creating the user, here I will just do is delete user.authentication before returning the user object, and I will just say demo@gmail.com. That's fine. Now this is still satisfactory for me, what we are getting in this. And now I can do the login, and I will just pass email and the password. Okay, there is an error. We'll fix it. What is the error saying? Unable to read, can't read properties of undefined. Auth.js 33. Salt value it is not able to read. So the user.authentication.salt. I think because get user by email is returning, it's not returning a user or object. Get user by email. So here user dot, it should be find one. Do we have find one? It should be find one. Let's see if it changes something. Then we also need to change in the register function. So here I am just returning only a single user by email. If it exists, then we are just doing the select operation on that. So in the authentication, while doing registration also, we are doing this find one. So we don't need to do the length now. It will fix that. And here authentication.salt. Okay, will it give me? Okay, that's good. So the typing issue is also solved, right? Authentication.solve, because earlier it was returning an array of users. Now it is returning a single object, so we can get the authentication object from there. I will do the registration first because we changed the things how it works. I will just say 11, username 11 and password 11. Good, and I will do the login now. This is fine, and that's it. That's what I need. And it's giving me the password. That is what I don't need. And here you can see I should be getting the cookies. Set cookies. This is the auth cookies I wanted, right? This is the auth cookies I'm getting in the response. This is important because this auth cookies I'm going to send back to the server for authentication, because this is what I need. And I will be just deleting this authentication.password and the salt value. I mean, I can just delete this whole authentication object because everything we are returning in the cookies. So before returning the user object from the login also, I can just write this delete user.authentication. That will secure my stuff because we need only cookies. That tells me, okay, you are authenticated. And I will do this again. Is it started? Delete user.authentication. Okay, that's strange. I'm deleting this authentication object. Is it not starting? Or I can just set simply status code. Email is user.email. Because whatever I'm returning from here is not useful for the user. The token is the cookies which I'm returning, that is useful for the user. Okay, you can send an email, username, other properties. Instead of deleting it, we can do something like this also. So that is safe. Okay, now we are going to add a middleware. What that middleware will do is, let's say you do the login. Now you did the register and you did the login. And you will start accessing the protected APIs, users API. So how can we validate that you are a logged in user? So inside a middleware index.ts, for what we can do is we can simply write our functions export const is authenticated async, and this will contain request, response and next function that is coming from the Express. So all these things we are going to pass here, and we will import Express from Express. And then inside this, let's put everything inside a try catch, and if this condition doesn't match, send unauthorized, because user is not authenticated, user is not passing the cookies in the header. Session token we are getting from request.cookies. So this is how we can get the cookies, auth cookies, I think that is the name, auth cookie. This cookie you need to send back to the server, and this is a request, not response. Request.cookie cookies. I'm doing some small mistakes. Okay, and then if session token is not being passed, then we are not interested in you, and I will just send you back response.status. Send status is the method which can do the thing. Send status 403 unauthorized session token. Now if it is being passed, what we will do is const user. We will just check if user is there. Get user by session token. We are passing, somebody is passing a session token. If that session token user exists, if the existing user exists, then we are good. I think this should return as the object dot find one. So we are good here. And if user doesn't exist, then we will do the same thing. Send status 403. If user exists, then what we can do is we can just do a return next. Return next means we will allow you to access things. Oh man. Return next. And this is we can do simply. So we need to, we can also merge something like request.user. I think we need a typings for it. Request.user equal to user object, because user doesn't exist on that, right? So what we need to do, we need to create a typings for it. For now, let's put a request as any. Or can I do it something like this? Because it's a TypeScript, request any. Okay, it won't allow me. So I will just say any for now, and then I will add the typings. So I'm just adding a request user, and then simply return next. That should be the last line. Okay, if there is a catch, we can just simply say status 400 or 403, whatever is suitable. And there can be another middleware. For now, I think this is fine. We can also have a is on another middleware which will check, okay, are you the really the user of this resource which you are acting on? So there can be a role-based authorization, identity-based authorization we can add on top of this. So this is a simple middleware we have created. We can use this middleware in our user operations. So we are going to write a user controller that will have some methods: get user, delete user, update user. And okay, we can just write it, export const get all users, simple function equal to async, and it takes parameters request and response. Request express dot request, and response, that is also express dot response. And then this is an arrow function, and I will be writing just these route handlers, and we need to just use all these import methods from the DB models. Express should be small. What happened, I always put response by request and response, and then just put a try catch wrapper, and inside this I will be doing some stuff for get all users. So you already aware, it's a simple, right? Await get all users, and we can just do return response dot status. status 200 dot JSON users. So get all users, get all API users. Let's change the method name, and get all user is a function we can import. Get users, no, get all users should be there, right? I defined it. Okay, get users is fine. That is also doing the same thing. Get users await, and if there is an error, we can send a 400. Similarly, I can define the other methods. This is get all users. So what other methods we have is delete user. So here I can just do is first I need to get the ID from the query params. So we can also do the validation for that, request.param. Using that I will get the ID, and here I will be calling delete user by ID and pass the ID. That's it. And then status code deleted user. Simply user is also fine. It's a single user object that you are deleting. And then update user. So we have update user, and update user also we are going to get the ID, and let's say you are allowing only update of the username. Request.body, you will define that what all properties you can update from the APIs. So here update user, and here you can pass update user and the body. First of all, so this is how it will work. First we need to get user by ID. First we need to check if user exists. If user exists, then only we'll be doing it. Otherwise we'll be sending okay, user doesn't exist. If username is not there, if user is not there, then we can just do is return response dot send status 404 user not found, right? And if user is there, we can say is user dot username equal to the username you are passing from the payload. And finally you can just save this, await user dot save. That's it. So this is like a simple operations we have written, not nodes. Export const get all API users. I'm importing something like this, that is wrong. I mean, that is just a VS Code stuff. It is changed it like this. Okay, now we are good. We have all the APIs, and now I can just see, I can check in the Insomnia. So I just logged in, right? So I can need to pass this cookies. So this is our login. I will just duplicate this request, and let's say get all users. And my API URL will be auth login. What will be the API URL for this? Go to the router and try to understand API, and there will be a users. Instead of auth, we can just do API users, and that will be get delete patch, right? This will be a simple get, and then you need to pass these cookies which you just received from the login. Okay, this is the cookies we have received. The name of the cookies is auth cookies. So we got the cookies while doing a simple login. So this is the login we were doing, and password hello1. If you remember, I just need to correct this path, API auth login. I don't remember what I entered, so I will just do the register again, and I will enter email and the password @gmail.com. The password is 11. What happened? Is it giving some error? Okay, I need to API auth register, API auth login 3002. I don't know, while closing this Insomnia something happened. So this is the cookies, right? F1A6. This is how it manages all these things. F1A6. So cookies are managed. And if I try to do API users, what it will do is it will send these cookies. So you can set that in the headers, check that in the headers, like what all things are being passed in the headers. So here is the request, and you can see in this is what you are requesting, and I can see in the cookies I'm sending auth cookies, and this is the response I got, status code 200, and this is my response object, and I'm also logging the cookies in the from the middleware. Okay, this is the cookies I am receiving. So everything is correct. I got the user object. Here you can also print the user object for just for the demo, but don't log it on the console. And here I will just try to send it, and you can see this user object is being printed, right? That means user exists and this session ID exists in the database, and now we can log in. And whenever you do the login,